Welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, the Halloween edition. You can listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. You can follow the Gritty Nurses on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Subscribe to be a Patreon member to show your support and shop at Gritty Nurse Apparel for your nursing fashion needs. Now, let me take you to a place so horrifying, you will be terrified for shifts to come, and you will think twice about closing your eyes on nights. This episode we call, Welcome to Hell Hospital.
So our topic for this week is around Halloween because we know that's coming up, and we are going to talk about ghost stories.
Yes, I am so excited. So for anybody who knows me or knows anything about me, I love horror movies. I love scary everything. I am like the person that goes out to Spirit Halloween and Party City like twice a week during like the month of October, just because I love to like go in, step on all the props. So you know what I'm talking about, right? You know how they have like the various scary props that they set around. So it's maybe a creepy laughing clown or like a jumping spider. So I was actually at Party City, sorry. I was at Spirit Halloween today, and I got my kid's costume. So my son got an inflatable dinosaur, and honest to God, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen because he runs around this huge dinosaur suit. It's great. Anyways,
is it one of those things that has like a motor that pumps air to fill it up?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
But it is because he's so small and the suit's really big. It's just the funniest thing I've ever seen. My daughter wanted to be Rainbow Dash, and my son, of course, my other son, Spider-Man. So he's Miles Morales. But I think we have literally like 7 Spider-Man costumes for him.
That's awesome.
But so I don't diverge too much. Like I said, I love all things scary. Give me anything scary and I'm just like, I'm dying for it. So maybe what we should do before we get into these scary haunted hospital stories is maybe we can kind of tell a little bit of scary stories or maybe even just asking like, so Sarah, do you believe in ghosts?
Dun, dun, dun. I do. I haven't had a face-to-face encounter with ghosts, but I do believe in them. And the reason I say that is because, of course, when I used to work on the unit and, of course, when it was nights, there were different places that people slept. So we've talked about this a little bit in our night shift episode about the dynamics on nights and people going on break and where they sleep. And on this one unit I used to work on, it was the postpartum unit, we had a classroom that we used during the day for teaching, but at night, of course, it was for sleeping for, probably 2 people at a time sort of thing. And there was a lot of tables and there was mats because it also doubled as a room for teaching prenatal classes during the day. And it was also super, super cold at night. So it was like, I guess it was like an older building to begin with. And there was always weird drafts and like during the winter, sometimes cold air would blow through from the ceiling vent, which didn't make any sense. But a lot of people that would go to sleep in there would come back saying that they felt like there was weird noises or that they heard like people whispering when there was no one there, like they'd be sleeping by themselves, or that they would just feel like they'd be walking either to or from the room and they would just feel something over their shoulder, but they would look and nothing would be there. And I slept there one night and I kind of felt the same. And I'm not saying I came face to face with anything, but I felt like I was super freaked out because I felt like somebody was there even though I was by myself. You know that feeling where you think somebody's looking at you but you can't see where they are? I kind of felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't see where this being was. And I started to get so freaked out that I left after an hour to find somewhere else to sleep. And I left all my stuff there. I didn't even want to bring anything. I'm like, I'm going. I just need to get out of here. And I don't know if anybody's going to believe me, but I feel really creeped out. Like there's some sort of aura or presence in the room. And there were these weird drafts that couldn't be explained by, I guess, like the air vents. So I think that was my one kind of ghost story. Not super exciting, but yeah, that's my ghost story. And I have to say though, it used to be a postpartum unit, but supposedly before that, I think it was a palliative care or oncology unit where there were a lot of people that passed away. So I think that makes
Oh
sense.
dear.
Yeah.
That is kind of creepy. So, actually, before I get into my story, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, whether I believe in ghosts or spirits or any of these things. And I'll be honest, so I am a little bit of a skeptic. And this is actually quite surprising after some of the experiences I've had. So, with me saying that I'm a skeptic, I'm going to also put in the whole I'm raised as a West Indian woman. So, what I mean by that is they talk about things called like ghosts, duppies, voodoo, all that kind of crazy stuff, right? So, although I'm still skeptical, I've actually had some experiences that probably maybe would lean to believing in more supernatural and scary types of things. But um, I'm trying to rationalize it, right? Use my rational brain and be like, oh, this can't be happening or whatever the case may be. But who
Yeah.
knows, right? Like, like for example, if someone was like, "Hey, Amy, do you want to play with a Ouija board?" I'd be like, "No, why would I want to do that?" It's like those things make me uncomfortable. But I don't know. I don't know. Anyhow, so before I get into my scary hospital story, I'll tell you guys about my first very scary supernatural type of experience. So does everybody have their lights off now?
I don't have my lights off, but I am by myself
Okay,
in
I was
my
just waiting for
basement.
our listeners. Okay, here we go. So I actually lived, I guess I'll change obviously the names of people or whatever and where I lived. So I lived at this house, not where I am now, obviously when I was much younger. So probably when I was, let's say I was maybe around 6 or 7 when we first moved to this particular home. And it was it was one of the homes that I've lived in for pretty much most of my life before we moved to another home when I was like in my later teens. But essentially this house was a corner lot. We had a huge maple tree. It was one of the bigger houses on our particular street. But just I don't know, like a lot of family members who came there used to say that like they got weird vibes coming to our house. Anywho, my parents had actually rented out our basement, and we used to have tenants that would live in our basement. So we actually had one of my mom's good family friends come in. I guess it was her 2 sons, and her daughter that came to live with us. And let's call this lady, because I don't want to say what her name was, let's call her Anna. So Anna had been living with us probably for the latter of like 8 years or so.
Oh
And she
wow,
came
long
down
time.
with an illness. Yeah, she lived, well, she was like my mom's friend, right? So she came down with this illness. And essentially, we were actually away in Jamaica at the time. And we got the call from, I believe it was one of her sons that called us while we were in Jamaica and was just like, hey, my mom's really sick. I don't know if you guys can come back. I think she had cancer. And they're like, oh, I don't know if you can come back. We're really concerned about her. But we just want to give you guys a heads up. And we're like, okay, thanks for letting us know. We'll be back. And I guess my mom was like, no, we're not going to cancel our vacation. I think we were going to be back within like 2 days.
Okay.
So essentially we get back to Canada, and his mom is like, I guess, still in the hospital, and I think my mom took a phone call from her. Let's say it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she said she spoke with her. She sounded well and optimistic or whatever. We did get off the phone. My mom did get off the phone with her, and then we got a call maybe another like 5-10 minutes later, and it was her son saying that she had passed away. And
What?
we're like, oh, like, yeah, right.
Like you
So
just
my
spoke
mom
to
was,
her though.
yeah. So my mom was like, oh, I just spoke to her, and the son was like, there's no way possible that you spoke to her because she died at like 2:50. So right there, that was like the first what the F moment, because it was like my mom spoke to her. Let's say it was like my mom spoke to her at 3 o'clock. And she died like 15-20 minutes before, and the son's like, no, that couldn't have happened. So first kind of like,
Right.
oh crap moment, right? So that was kind of the first of the very more strange things to come. So she did pass on, and I was actually too young, so I didn't actually go to the funeral. But there were certain things, let's say, Anna used to do when she lived with us, because she lived with us for so long, she would like, she'd come up into her home, whatever, and she was always very quiet. So one of the things that she used to do all the time is, so let's say I'm trying to kind of describe my house. So if you had come in through the front door and kind of around the corner, there was the basement door. And then further down would have been like our living room, dining room.
Okay,
Sorry,
so it
our
was kind of
family room.
like a
So I
different
would,
level, right?
well, she was in the basement, but I'm trying to kind of position where this door would have been. So essentially the door would have been kind of, I guess, on the lateral aspect of off of the family room. So one of the things that she used to do is like, I'd come in from school, I'd drop all my crap off, and I would go, of course, straight to the family room and turn on the TV. And because she was really quiet, she would kind of come upstairs and she would stand like outside of the family room right by the basement door, and she'd be kind of like, looking and whatever. I turn around like, damn, like,
Did you ever get freaked out? Because even as you're saying this, I'm getting freaked out. Like just someone standing there and you don't realize they're there because they're so quiet.
It's just, I think it's just because she was just really quiet. I'm like, oh my god. I turn around, I'm like, hey, what are you doing there? And she'd be like, oh, I just heard you come up and I just was gonna say hi, and I didn't mean to startle you. And I was like, oh, okay. But she would do that like more than once, or she'd come up and the door would be open or whatever, and I would creep downstairs and she's cooking some fried chicken or whatever. I'm like, yeah, this is great. So let's say it was maybe now like a week or two after the funeral. I remember my mom actually used to work, she had like a double job, so she worked days and then sometimes she'd work nights, and my dad had his own business. So, of course, I was always the first to come home because my brother and my sister were much older than me. So, they had extracurricular or whatever. So I'd say probably I was in I think it was actually grade 7 or grade 8. And I remember same kind of routine. I came in, dropped my bag off, went into the living room, turned on the TV. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching it. And I had that feeling, that feeling like someone is like standing like right behind you. So like turned around, and there was nobody there, like nobody. And I was just like, okay. So I put the TV back on, and I was just like, okay, I'll just keep watching the TV. And I started to have that feeling again, like that somebody was there, and I was just like, okay. So I turn around again, nobody's there, and I'm just like, okay, like I just need to like, I'm just gonna get up, go to the kitchen and get something to eat. So I go to turn off the TV and I hear a creak, and I'm like, I turn around and now the basement door is ajar. I fucking grabbed my backpack and I bolted this shit right down to my friend's house. My friend must have lived probably like 7 or 8 houses down, and I bolted. I left the door open, everything just ran straight out of the house. Called my mom and I'm like, I am sorry, but I cannot go and stay there. Like, she is there. So I know this is crazy. So like my mom and dad and like sister and brother actually started having phenomena, like seeing things, hearing things, whispering, all sorts of crazy stuff. So this
when
is
you
really
say seeing things, what do you mean? Like what kind of things would they see?
Like shadows. Like I wouldn't like this and I'm kind of getting to it. So like just seeing crazy stuff, like shadows, hearing things that weren't there, all that kind of stuff. And then like it just never really stopped from there. So the next instance is I actually had my grandma sleeping over. So try to picture it this way. So I had a bedroom that had 2 beds in it, and my grandma would have slept on one side.
Okay.
And then like down the hallway, so there would I would have to pass my brother's room, past my mom's room to get to the bathroom. Because I guess this is back in the days where they had like really like just one main bathroom, like a 3-bedroom house.
Okay, yeah.
So one day, it was at night, we're sleeping, and I saw my grandma getting up, and I was like, oh good, she's going to the bathroom, I need to pee too. And she got outside of the room and left the door kind of ajar, and I saw her kind of walking down, and I was like, okay, I'll just wait till she flicks the light on and I'll go. So I saw the light go on, and I'm like, all right, it's go time, right? So I kind of jumped up, got out of my bed, and I went to the bathroom, and nobody was in the bathroom. I was like,
but you heard it clear as day, like you expected somebody to be there.
Absolutely. And I clearly saw her like leave the room, or I saw something leave the room to go to the bathroom. So now I'm standing in the bathroom with the light on, dark hallway. I'm just like, okay, nobody's in here. So like, do my thing, go back to my room, and I turn on the light and she's laying there, and I was like, no, I can't handle this anymore. I'm like, I can't handle any more of this. So actually what ended up happening, I know this is like super crazy. My mom actually had this other friend, and I'm gonna blank out her name. Her name was, let's say it was Bernice or whatever. And Bernice came into her home and was like, you guys have a presence here, and it's not who you think it is. So that was like the other part that I was like, what is happening? Like, what do you mean it's not who we think it is, right?
Yeah.
So she went down to the basement, and like, it was crazy. Like, I will remember it to this day. This lady, like, she had, I guess it would have been like I guess like smudging, but maybe not, because she had like, I don't know, like she was cleansing the house. So she had like, it was some type of like essence oil and like this thing that she was burning, and she was like throwing salt around. It was fucking right out of like Supernatural. It was like super, super scary. But after that, nothing.
So who was this
Like,
friend of your
nothing.
mom's? Like, did she do that for other people, or was just this something she did for you?
I don't know. Like, remember, I was
because you were
pretty,
really
like,
young. Okay,
right?
yeah.
And I just, well, like, I would have been like, what, I guess 12 or 13. But I just, like, I remember it very clearly because it was such a weird time in our life. And I just remember her coming in and was like, oh, yeah, there's something here. We got to deal with it. And I'm just like, what is happening? So maybe this is what kind of has led me to, you know, be a little bit like I think I want to know about it, but I don't want to know about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the fact
Those
that
are
you
my
had all of
scary
these things
experiences.
happen, like, they couldn't have just all been coincidences. And I know you and I are not those kind of woo people that are like, into seances or I don't know, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting that you had this history, like, of this woman that used to live with you, and she just like
Yeah, it was like
just continued
super
to.
bizarre.
And I don't know what your mom's friend Bernice meant by it's not who you think it is. So was she saying it wasn't?
Well, I think she
your
was
mom's
alluding
friend?
to, I think that's what she was alluding to, that this spirit or that this thing that we had encountered or been feeling in our home wasn't the person that we thought it was. So it wasn't Anna, it was someone else. So like, whether we let something else in because maybe we believed it was her or whatever, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know. But
Did
that
your
was like,
parents ever say who had the house before you? Like, maybe it was someone previous to you.
I have no idea. Like, I think
Oh.
I think if you asked anybody who knows me and knows about that house, they would tell you all the same thing, that place was like definitely haunted. So yeah, crazy.
Actually,
But
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, are you done your story? Because I just thought of something else. I thought of a story.
No, you
Oh.
can go with your story. Like, I'll jump into my hospital story after
Okay.
this. But
No,
yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
thought of something as you were talking, and I can't believe I forgot about this until now. So when I was in university, I lived off campus. I lived in a house that actually had 8 bedrooms, so there were 8 people. But around Halloween, I guess it would have been the weekend maybe before Halloween. Everybody was just out of the house for whatever reason, and it was nighttime, and I was studying for an exam, and I lived in the attic, so there was like 2 of us.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there was 2 of us in the attic, and then there was this weird sort of crawl space that connected both of the rooms. I don't know if you remember, or if you've been in an old house where it's sort of like this door that you kind of push out and you take
Yeah,
the
I know
whole
what you're
door out.
talking
Yeah,
about.
so there was like this weird sort of crawl space that connected the 2 rooms that were in the attic, and nothing's there except that I maybe shoved some clothes that didn't fit in my closet. But I remember being completely alone in the house studying for an exam, and I kept hearing these like weird scratching sounds that appeared to be coming from this crawl space, and I was freaked out. So I think at one point I took a flashlight and I like looked in there and I didn't see anything. And then it was this weird knocking sound that started on one side of my room, like from behind the wall, and it kept moving, like as though it was somebody like walking and knocking on the wall from the other side. And so then I was like really freaked out, and I was like, I'm gonna knock back. So I knocked back, and then the person like knocked like right where I had knocked the wall. So then I started getting really freaked out. And then I also ran out of the house and I went down the street to the corner store.
Did you not see that movie where like you hear the knocking noises? You never like try to like knock back to see, like you're just like, no.
I think in university I had just finished watching a movie in the theater, and it was like something always really bad happened at 4 a.m. or something. So I was really freaked out that night, and I was glad that people, started coming back. I think people had gone out to the bar and they were coming back. So like 4 a.m. in this movie that I can't remember was like the hour that something bad always happened. And I was like, I just can't have this happen right now. But I wasn't able to like go cuddle up with one of my roommates either, because that would have been weird. But yeah.
Well, I think they say like in most like horror movies and stuff that like 3 o'clock is like the witching hour, or it's the demon hour or whatever. Like 333, it's like 666 or whatever. So like, I don't know. I always get creeped out if it's like I look at my phone and I'm like, oh god, it's 3 o'clock, I need to go back to sleep. But yeah, I think that's what they say in like mythical horror lore, that 3 o'clock is the time where I guess the barriers between the worlds are at the thinnest. So it's definitely like the scariest time of the day.
I always felt like working night shift 3 to 4 a.m. was always the hardest time for me to.
Yeah, I could never get past that time. It was just like, if I wasn't on first break, then I was like toast. I'd had to either be like, I go on first break and then they're waking me up at 3, or I go on like I had to do that. I couldn't do the 3 onwards. I think by that time I was overtired.
Right.
But so back to hospital horror stories. So this one, thanks to my L&D crew, they scared the crap out of me. So of course, you know how this works. It's like initiation. So I was like the newest nurse on the unit at this time. And I think it was actually around Halloween, and we were all telling various different ghost stories around the nursing station for whatever reason. I think it was a relatively silent night. So so we decided to kind of talk scary stuff, and so we're all kind of huddled around, we don't have any patients on the unit. So they were telling me about this one particular room 44, I think it's room 44 by
this
the
room
ORs.
Is infamous, by the way. Even I know about this room.
Room 44 right by the OR doors was haunted. So I was kind of like, well, like, why is room 44 haunted? And they're like, well, I think they said it was like 2 years ago or whatever the case may be. They had a patient who had come in laboring or whatever, and she came in, I think she came in fast and heavy or whatever the case may be, and she had an amniotic embolism that essentially took her life. I don't know if they said it took the baby's life or whatever, but it
so
essentially
rare.
Yes, it essentially took her life. But they were saying that it happened so quickly that there was no way that this patient would have even realized that they were dead themselves, because it was just like 1 minute here, next minute just absolutely gone. So they said ever since that particular death in that room, like, one, it stunned the staff. It was heartbreaking to see. It was obviously such a rare event, but essentially they used to get chills and the heebie-jeebies kind of every time they went into room 44, and they decided to not ever put patients in there because of this particular situation. It's just like the room that got the bad vibes. And then they talked about there were many nights that, let's say, there weren't any places for a break to happen, and nurses maybe had gone in and slept in room 44, and then they were either woken out of their sleep, or they felt someone touching them, or any of those kind of creepy things. So they're like, essentially, for all intents and purposes, room 44 is off, like off, like no one should be going in there. We don't put patients in there, nothing, right?
Yeah. So would
and then they look at me.
Yeah.
Sir, go ahead.
Would you ever sleep in that room? Like, because you were saying it's a break room.
Well, listen to what these MFs did, right? So they're just like, all right, Amie, it's break time. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, I look over at, they have the like break sheet that, they rip up and throw in the morning. So like
Yep,
no
I
management
know that
sees.
sheet.
I look over and my name is beside room 44. And I'm like, are you guys kidding me? And they're like, no, it's your turn. I'm like, no, guys. Like, you guys just told this story about this, like, that the room's haunted. They're like room 44 or bust. And I was like, I'm so tired.
So does that mean you're not getting break if you don't go to this room 44?
Well, they were just like, well, you could stay out here. You could just sit in the chairs and like chill with Charge. And I was just like, you know what, you guys? I'm like, you know what? You guys are a-holes. I'm gonna get my warm blanket. This stuff isn't real. I'm going to room 44. And they're like, all right, good luck. Hopefully we'll see you. And I'm just like, this is the worst. Like, I was so scared. So, of course, like, I go into room 44 and I like flick the light on. It's a normal hospital room, a birthing bed, and I was just like, okay, I'll just sleep on the pull-out couch or whatever, right? And so it's like the couch that essentially they kind of they use it for like the dads or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting the couch all prepared and ready, and I can hear them out there snickering, and I'm just like, whatever, these bitches, they're making me do this or whatever. I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna show them. And it's like half an hour, and I'm laying there, and I have the bathroom light on because I'm
So
scared.
scared,
Like,
yeah.
I'm terrified, right? I'm just like laying there, and I am terrified. So I think I got in there. To be honest, I actually think I got in there at like 2:30. So I was like getting close to like the witching hour or whatever. And I was just like, I just need to close my eyes and like it'll be fine. So like I had the light on and I was like starting to drift to sleep, and I had this like, it was just all of a sudden like I felt like this pressure in my chest, and then I like opened my eyes and I looked at my watch, like my sorry, it wasn't my watch, but I looked at my phone and it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I was like, what the F just happened? And I jumped up and I got out. They're like, oh, we were gonna come get you at 6. I'm like, nope, I don't even know how I slept. Like, I don't even think I slept. I think something like was trying to like put a spell on me or something. Like, I was like, I just need to like, I don't even know, because it was just like I like blinked and it was like I felt this like crushing sensation, and then I like jumped out of my sleep, and then it was like 5:30, and I was like, nope.
It sounds like you almost blacked out, and it sounds really unnatural. Like, usually it takes a while to fall asleep, especially when you're freaked out like
well,
that.
I was so scared, right? And they're just like, so how was it in 44? I'm like, I will never go and sleep in there again. Like, I know you guys are effing, and yeah, that's the other thing. The room was so cold. Like, I know typically anyways, those patient rooms can get really chilly, but like I just couldn't get warm. It was just so drafty and just so like so cold. It was just messed up. Do I think room 44 is haunted? Probably not. Do I think they messed with my mind and made me feel that way? For sure.
In Chinese culture, also the number 4 means, it sounds like the word for death. So the fact that it's room 44 means it's like doubly hexed, I think. So I wouldn't go in there either.
Yeah, like, I mean, I just think when it comes to nursing horror stories and just, I think some nurses are just awful people. They're just like, oh, we're gonna scare
maybe
you
they're the
and
ghost
whatever.
and they're the horror story. Because
Well, you know what? Like, I remember seeing some seasoned nurses that they were like, no, I will never go in that room. And it might just be the fact that something really, really tragic happened there. And I think, it's kind of like The Grudge, right? When something really, really tragic happens, that maybe the spirit still lingers and still hangs out and still hangs on to their last instant or element that they might have been in. And, who knows if, anger and aggression can make these things worse, but I don't know.
Right. I mean, I never watched The Grudge, but I watched The Ring about 3 times in theaters when it came out. And each time I got more and more freaked out because I knew where all the scary parts were, and the music, it's just like, it just makes you so on edge. And then I remember jumping up and like knocking over a cup of pop that had ice in it. It was just, It was so bad.
Well, this is the thing, right? And I think it just kind of goes in line with hospitals and scary stories and all these things. I think people are just, of course, just afraid of the unknown, right? Like I think whether these things exist or not, I think it's just not knowing whether these things actually can occur or do occur is what actually makes them scary. And I think that the reason why people indulge or engage with horror movies and horror films and all these various different imagery around haunted hospitals and like scary haunted zombie type nurses is because I think like subconsciously we're trying to explore what it would be like if we were in these type of situations, right? And knowing that it's most likely not going to occur, right? So it's kind of like I guess it's kind of like going on a roller coaster ride, knowing that at the end you can get off and be like, "Whew, that was that," but it's not real, right? But I don't know. Like I think with some of the experiences I had when I was younger and now, like I don't know, maybe there is an explanation for all of it, but maybe there isn't. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and I think even just I think a prerequisite, right, is that it has to be at night. It has to. And usually you're alone in some way, and there's just a lot of things that can't be explained, like more than normal. So I guess in the case of, you explained about your mom's friend, right? If that one thing had happened, like just that phone call, it wouldn't have been as bad as if the phone call happened and the fact that you were freaked out by the closing door and then like all these other things just kept happening, right? So I think that's the other thing. It's like a series of events that keep happening.
Well, see, now that's the other funny thing that you mentioned. So, another part that I kind of forgot about with the story, but you just had kind of brought it up to my mind, was the fact that my aunt actually had this like little dog. It was a little black dog named Lady. And one of the things that they say about like paranormal and stuff is that like animals can sense when other things are there. And I remember like my aunt had come over and it was several weeks after, let's say her name was Anna had died. And we were all talking in the family room and the dog started barking. So we thought someone was at the front door or whatever. So we're like, "Shut up, lady, stop barking." This yappy little mutt barking. And we go and the doors open to the basement and she's just like hackles up barking, like going forward, going back, barking, and like at the basement door. And we're just like, "What the hell?" And just was like foaming at the mouth, barking at this basement door. And it was just like
crazy, like right. Really just getting into it. I didn't realize that foaming in the mouth was part of it too.
I was just like, all right, let's go inside now. But yeah, like that house, it just so many crazy things had happened there. But I mean, maybe I'm just more sensitive to it, and it's just from those experiences that, like now as I'm older, that I'm kind of trying to rationalize it a little bit more. But who knows, maybe there was really something to it, because I do remember that after this lady came and did all her whatever homeopathic exorcisms,
voodoo,
that the voodoo, that the instances stopped, right? And but yeah, super creepy. And I think when it comes to the hospital setting, and we know that people die and pass away there all the time, there's always that underlying like sense of disturbance. Like I remember another thing that someone told me when I was becoming like when I was getting into nursing, was not to sleep on the hospital beds. And I was like, why? Like there was many times where I was on break and I was like, I'm gonna sleep on this bed, especially like the postpartum ones, because they were super comfy. And they're like, you should never sleep on a hospital bed. You don't know who's died on it. And I was like,
oh, that actually does
make
sense. Well,
I was just like,
argument, because I was thinking as you were saying, like on postpartum, the bed could have come from anywhere, right? But in labor and delivery, there's special beds that break down for when women are actually pushing and delivering. So those beds would just stay on those in that unit. But you're right, any bed in the hospital could technically have been from anywhere. You don't know. Unless you work in a super, super small hospital, and I don't know.
Yep, that's what I was told. They're like, never sleep on a hospital bed. You never know who's died on it. And the other thing the person told me was like, the other reason you don't want to sleep on a hospital bed is you don't want to take anybody home with you. And I was just like, home. Oh shit. I was like, I don't want to take anybody home. I don't want anybody to follow me home. So there you have it. Nursing students, new grads, anybody who's listening who has to sleep on their shift, do not sleep on the hospital mattresses.
And I think
No
just
matter
to
how
wrap
many
up this,
cabbie wipes you use.
just want to wrap up this episode by talking about our favorite horror movie. So, Amy, what is your favorite horror movie?
Oh,
If you had
that
to
is
narrow it
such
down.
a tough question to narrow it down. Oh my god, what is my favorite horror movie?
Well, what's the last one you watched? Maybe we could talk about that because that's probably one that you like.
The last one it's so funny. It's like top of mind, right? The last a horror movie I watched was actually on Shudder. So I don't know if anybody knows what Shudder is. It's like a subscription. So I have a I have a horror movie subscription.
Do you really?
I do. It was called The Mortuary Collection, and essentially this movie was about so I guess this guy owns a mortuary, and it's about storytelling. So at the beginning, he's doing a funeral for a young lad, and people are leaving, and then a passerby comes into the mortuary and asks, I guess, this funeral home director to tell her 5 scary stories. I thought it was amazing. I was just like, this is up my alley. And the 5 stories were absolutely horrifying. And then the end had a pretty good twist, and I enjoyed it. So
Okay, well, there
if
you
you
go.
have Shudder, please, like, I mean, of course it's a paid subscription, but if you can get it, The Mortuary Collection is a really, really good movie. But now if I have to say, and I have to dig into the classics, I will. Best horror movie, probably one of the scariest horror movies I've seen, is The Exorcist. It is, to this day, one of the movies that if it comes on the TV, I will watch it, but I will not sleep with the lights off.
That movie does not get old. I know it's quite a long time ago it was made, but it's just like one of those iconic movies that will always be there.
Yeah, like I think for me, that one, like any movies like that. So like I think the next closest one for me would be the very first Paranormal Activity, because I think all the other ones get kind of ridiculous at the end. But I think the whole mantra, or the whole idea of not dealing with something human, dealing with something that's demonic, and really not having that power to be able to change your outcome, because now you are dealing with the supernatural in that aspect, is absolutely horrifying. So definitely The Exorcist, I think for me, is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Well, one of my favorite scary movies, and this is going to date me a little bit, is Final Destination. I don't know if you saw
It's not
it.
dating you.
Sure it is. It came out like 20
You're
years
so
ago.
funny. Well, okay, so The Exorcist predates me. I definitely wasn't around when The Exorcist came out. But yeah, tell me a little bit about why Final Destination is your favorite scary movie.
I think it's my favorite because there's no actual killer, right? It's just about death itself and when it is your turn to die. And it's just like, I don't want to give away the plot, but it's just people cheating death essentially. So that's the first reason I like it. Number 2 was because I think it was Devon Sawa. Isn't he the main character?
Oh yeah.
I had a huge crush on him, and he was in that movie.
I think everyone had a crush on him, yeah.
I don't know what happened to him, but anyway, that was the second reason I liked it. And it was like, I think it ended up being 3 movies. Like there was Final Destination 1, and then 2, and then 3, and I watched all of them.
I feel like there's more. I could be wrong, but like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's more, but maybe.
But then my other favorite, and it's not really a horror movie, but it's more like a TV series, is X-Files. And I know, again, this is making me sound super old, but I used to watch it when I was really young, before there were all these warnings about when you should and shouldn't watch stuff. And my parents didn't really pay much attention to that anyway. So I remember sitting like frozen on my couch watching X-Files. I was probably like 9, like really young. And then I remember being so scared that I was afraid that something was hiding under my couch, and I didn't even want to get up after the show was ended. I'd just be sitting there afterwards thinking, this is the creepiest show ever. How do people come up with this? And I mean, because they talk about so many unknowns in that, right? It's mainly about like the UFOs and aliens and all kinds of weird stuff, spontaneous combustion and like all kinds of weird things that I don't even know how people come up with
Right,
it.
right. No, man, I remember watching a couple episodes of the X-Files and being like, this is some scary ass stuff. Like, it was just like, I can't handle this. But yeah, like, I don't know. For me, I don't know. I just like Halloween, October is just like my favorite time of the year. I love all the scary stuff. Like, I do my Halloween countdown. So we, um, we do our like 15 movies to Halloween. So
15.
we'll
Is it
probably
always the
watch some.
same
Yeah.
15?
No, sometimes I switch it up. One that always gets in there so like of course The Exorcist always gets in there, but the other one that always gets in there is Sleepy Hollow, cuz I don't know, I just really enjoy that one too. So,
I like that one too. And actually today I watched Hocus Pocus. So it's not really a scary
okay.
movie, but it's a Halloween movie.
I watched the Haunted Mansion today with the kids, and I think it creeped them out a little bit, but it's Disney, so I was kind of like, "Hey guys, come on."
Well,
Like,
you can't go wrong with Disney.
yeah, well, they're probably a little creeped out, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, you got man up, kids. Mom likes horror movies. But yeah, like, I mean, so this would be our part one series of scary stories at hospitals. I'm sure we'll have some more next week. And again, don't sleep on hospital beds, and check underneath your bed before you go to bed tonight. Close your closets. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
So just remember, we have our Gritty Nurse apparel line. You can find us at www.grittynurse.com. Please join the conversation, make a statement, and subscribe and go to our website.
And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or any other podcast listening platform, be sure to hit subscribe so you can get updates to when we release episodes. Also, be sure to rate and review us. You can also find us on Patreon. We are at Patreon at the Gritty Nurse Podcast. We just wanted to let you know that any donation you make, however big or small, is going towards supporting our monthly podcast costs, which include podcast hosting, our website, audio equipment that we use, and also the time and energy it takes us to research and put out good quality episodes for you guys. Thanks.